So I'm an industry author. I've written a lot of books. I have some samples if you want to see them up here. And what we'd like to do is just take 3 hours of time and squash it into about 35 minutes and show you the different yarns that we evolve both in carpet and in fabric, which will give you some idea, okay? Because there are some things you need to know. It's kind of like people. There's some good and bad in all of them, right? Right? And sometimes we think that the yarns are all the same, which is one of the single biggest things that cleaners do as a mistake. It's like they think all stone's the same, where limestone and travertine are all much softer. There's a big difference. So if we can determine the personality, more commonly known as the characteristic, it makes a huge difference. But you guys are welcome to tape me if you want, because I think it'll be a good review for you. This is an excerpt from one of my textbooks. The copy is not here. We're going through some final review with it, and it's to teach women how to clean fabric. So I wrote a pink textbook because women are a great work source. They're smart, they know yarns, but why not let them go into business or assist their husbands on cleaning fabric, right? It's never been done. This is the way they can learn, and they can take these little simple machines and make $3,000 to $4,000 a month working a very small part-time job cleaning fabric. And women on women is a real good sales thing. So let's kind of scroll you down here, and I'll take you into the fiber section.
Good afternoon. I want to remind you all that we've got safety protocols in place here in Las Vegas.
We're good.
And if you were not wearing a mask, would you please put the mask on? We've had some complaints. And the hotel is faulty and warned us. You need to wear masks in the surgical hall. You don't have to wear masks outside. But if you're in the surgical hall, please wear your mask.
Okay, so this is cotton. Cotton is the most popular fiber of natural ever found in fabrics itself. It's the most popular natural yarn in fabrics. Now, cotton has what we call concerns or advantages, things that we look for, right? Advantages are what the yarn naturally does to help you. That's a good thing. Many of you don't realize there are some things the yarn helps you with, but you get credit because the consumer doesn't know any different, right? It makes you look good when the soil falls out and the stain comes out easy. It's usually not the product you're using, it's actually the yarn helping you. What's that? You're welcome to tape me if you like. So, cotton's advantage is it's 50% stronger while it's wet. Many people don't realize that. It actually helps you. It's stronger. You ever tried ripping a dry towel versus a wet one? It's a big difference. Cotton has already very tolerant to strong alkaline solutions. Many people don't realize that. Unless it's a natural or raw cotton with the seeds in it, which is rare, you can put strong alkaline up there up to 10, 10.5, and usually don't brown it, but you do want to neutralize it. So anything you get on there, you got to get off, so you don't want to over wet it. Of course, it's subject to shrinkage, right? Okay. It's very, very absorbent. On the relation scale of how much absorbency, it's number 2 at 16 to 17%. Number 1 is wool at 30%. See, that's why the carpets dry slower. Getting a number to a consumer is great because you've learned something digital that they feel is important and drawing that information to you. Okay? As you know, anything that's easily absorbed is also easily stained. I'm pulling these right from the textbook. This is jute. Jute is a 4-letter word for a reason. It's a 4-letter word for a reason. Jute is the opposite of cotton, and it's reaction. It hates alkaline. That means you don't want to put any on there. Where cotton will hold color usually very, very well, except for extreme heat temperatures or maybe some too much alkaline or a combination of that, jute will let the color go very quickly. You put a stain remover on cotton, usually okay. You put it on jute, the color of the yarn comes out with it. Not a good thing. Jute was put on carpet backings, and even today some. For the last 30 years, they haven't done it wall to wall, except on areas where people have wool or want all natural fiber in their house, and they soon find out how bad that is when they get a urine stain. Water damage companies will pull this right out because it rots and it just tears when it's wet. Jute is 50% weaker while it's wet. How does that sound like a reverse? It's weaker when it's wet. That's why your buddies in the water damage side keep shredding them when they pull them up. They don't realize they're so much more weaker than the plastic backings they're usually putting in there. Very strong when it's dry. You ever heard of burlap? Remember those burlap sacks you see with that brown, very heavy, kind of scratchy material? It's actually burlap. Burlap's made of that too. Very subject to 50% weaker and very difficult to get odors out of. Extremely difficult. This is sisal. It's not sisal like many people say. It's sisal. It comes from the sisalina plant primarily in Mexico. You've seen a lot of this out there. That magenta red is kind of popular mixed with the natural color. It's very, very popular, especially near beach or coastal areas. Of these coming yarns, this is one of the strongest and also one of the more trusting. But the color comes out of this quite easy. You put a cough remover on there with acetic acid or a color stripper like a reducer, which is gentler than an oxidized, you'll take all the color out. You'll get the stain out and all the color will come out with it. This is commonly blended with wool in a lot of area rugs. And if you find it with wool, you want to clean it like sisal because it's more sensitive than wool is. It's about as absorbent as cotton, to give you an idea, okay? This is koye, and koye is from the husk or outside of a coconut. Use your coconut to clean a coconut, okay? And koye is very rough. You'll see this mostly in welcome mats. That's where you see it. I've actually seen furniture made out of this. It's like sitting on a porcupine. It's that rough and it's that scratchy. You better have a very thick pair of jeans and a pillow when you sit on this stuff. But it's mostly designed because it's so rough and firm, it's great to pull mud off your shoes. So it's used mostly as outdoor. You ever seen one of these? It's real dark brown after about a season because all that cellulosic browning happens. Very unstable yarn. This one will grow about 1 to 4% when it gets wet, and it stays growing. So you're actually giving your customer more for their money because it's actually growing than when you start. You're giving them more back than you started with. I couldn't make this stuff up. This is seagrass. You've seen a lot of these look like little ropes. If you can't tell that from sisal, the good news is you clean it the same. It's going to react the same. These dry compound systems just sold right here. He's got a sample of that. That's how the manufacturers want it. You put it down, very light mist, the product. You put the dry down, you rub it in, you dry back it out. Except seagrass has a lot of depth. There's sometimes 3 layers of fiber going, and you have to get the powder out. Very tricky. Seagrass, though, is actually made of furniture as well. It's okay on the side of an ottoman, but not something you'd want to sit on. It's very hard, rough, and the edges tend to unravel real easy because they put a paper-thin layer of latex glue on this, and it shreds. I actually take those to class, and while I'm talking, I show them how strong it is, and I pull it apart, and I give it to the guy in the corner so he can smoke it later. It's kind of what it looks like. The smoking was a joke, by the way. This is linen. Many cleaners are afraid to clean it. It's much stronger than people think. Let's move you down just a little bit. Linen has been around for ancient days. It was called the yarn of kings. Linen, its natural color is sort of a light brown. It's very susceptible to cellulosic or plant browning. It's often blended with other things. I have seen silk and linen area rugs. Okay, so you're definitely going to use a dry compound. Don't be afraid to wash linen. Linen is a little bit like cotton. It gets 50% stronger while it's wet, which is great. It's very difficult to get stains out of. Even the RCC standard for S300 will tell you that it absorbs the stain. Linen will do one thing that scares cleaners an awful lot, and I want to show you some live pictures that I did on cleaning. This is what the problem is. 2 things. They do a lot of prints in these where with a computer like a printing press, they only dye one side. You can open it up. If it's dyed on one side, it's called printed, and it becomes very, very weak. That's a great way for the manufacturer to color it and a terrible way to have to clean it. So a lot of people use a dry solvent or use the solvent barrier down after they vacuum, then clean it as normal. Linen responds very well to shampoo and extraction solutions. But I want to show you this. See these dark areas? That's linen when it got wet. You see how dark it gets? You can clean a linen sofa and people think you're painting it. Looks like you're painting it brown. And all you did is get it wet, even when you got the right product. Guess how it dries? It dries back normal. So it's a great idea to carry a hair dryer. Hair dryer is essential to clean fabric, right? It's essential. It's a whole $20. And get an 1850 watt. You want a good one. And dry the area, show how it's going to look when it dries. It also allows you, if you've gotten the stain out, because you can see the stain better, if it's going to return, okay? But this is a mattress that was made of linen. I cleaned it about a year ago now, and look at how dark it got just by getting it wet with the right solution. But it dried back that way. But it's very scary to watch something get that dark. If you know what you're doing, you're fine. If you warn the customer ahead, they understand that, okay? This is Rayon viscose. This is the curse of today's cleaning. Rayon viscose was in 1894. A guy near the New Jersey area thought about taking natural yarn, creating and liquefying it, squeezing it through what looked like a shower head, and creating a yarn. And he applied man-made chemicals to it in order to make it pliable and do it. He wanted to create a synthetic yarn, but he used regenerated wood pulp and some cotton to make this. With these viscose rugs you're having a problem with, it's 1890s technology. How strong do you think that is? Yeah. So this has become one of the curses of the industry. Most of the stuff comes out of Pakistan and India, which is fine, except they don't have the responsibility when they sell it. Most of those area rugs, you'll see it in as $2,000, $3,000, and it's not worth its weight. It's really not. But these are very, very soft, and it was art or artificial silk. I had a customer say she thought it was silk. Well, it's known because it's softer than silk. I said, no, art is for artificial. And she goes, oh, no. I said, I bet they didn't tell you that in the label. See, be a good consumer, right? Remember, you're the consumer advocate for the cleaner, right? Because you know all the generics. So it all, see these, can you see these lines right here? This one vacuum, it scratches with even a vacuum cleaner beater bar. They recommend suction only. You see the texture change in this? This is a small picture blown up. This is after I cleaned the rug, and this is before. It mats. It mats terribly. Viscose is nasty stuff. I've always had a theory, if you're real bad in life and you go to the hot spot below, all the fabrics are made of viscose and all the carpets are made of jute. That should tell you something, right? Think in terms of your problems, concentrate on those two yarns because they're that difficult. But the idea is to overcome them, learn to clean them, get away with it great, but know what you're doing, and watch your competition turn it down. It gets you a lot. But viscose is way overpriced. It's got a lot of issues. Now this is 50, depends who you talk to. It's at least 50% weaker while it's wet. And you can clean this and watch the yarns come out in pieces. It's very common. It's called linting. You can actually take a very, very soft brush and go across it and see all the lint come off on the brush. That's part of the yarn coming out. It's the only yarn that'll do that. But silk is stronger than this stuff. That's how weak it is. This is known as the weakest yarn. So these are excerpts from a book, which is why it's not in PowerPoint form. Many of these yarns we just talked about have latex backing in them. That's designed, it's paper thin. It's made of 25% water, so when you get it wet, it can swell, right? Sometimes they don't mix it well because it's 25% Georgia clay, and clay, as you know, gets very rough and can crack when it's dry. So the sun can turn it this color, or you can see this is a brand new carpet that was just passed around as sample. See how it's deteriorated with time and oxidation? Okay? So when you clean some of these jute, soy, Sequoia, Seagrass rugs, look for the backing. If it has rubber on it, you can scratch it with your finger. You can feel the rubber in it. Be careful. Don't get it wet. On the wool side, it's from protein or animal or insect. Wool's very, very misunderstood. Let's pull this up here real quick. So wool's background's been around a long time, as you know. It's very underrated as a yarn. It's much stronger than people think. You're standing on wool right now. As a carpet cleaner, you're supposed to look down all day, aren't you? And a fabric cleaner, every time you sit down, you wonder what you're sitting on. Well, the wool has been around a very long time. It's very tolerant. The wool safe people who regulate the care and manufacture of wool changed their designation on pHs years ago, and many of the textbooks aren't keeping up with it. But they can claim you can use over an 11 pH on this as long as you got it all out. They're finding out the alkaline isn't quite the same damaging. So anything like any natural yarn, what you put on, you got to get 100%. So think in terms of misting or heavy misting, not garden hosing. With me? It is subject to shrinkage. It's much more color fast than people think. You almost never see a faded wool carpet. Do you ever notice that? You almost never see it. It's great. But wool has a wonderful texture. This is a mohair sofa one of my customers has. She spent about $4,500 for that sofa. It's now worth about $6,000. Because if you ever see mohair, it's very soft. Very, very soft. Very expensive. Many cleaners who clean synthetic carpets or area rugs will not even touch anything wool, and that's crazy. Most of your stuff can do. It has a lot to do with agitation. You want a soft cylindrical brush, not the standard one. You'll shred the yarn. Not any issue. But you have to make sure you pre-inspect. A big thing whether your carpet or fabric, you want to look for wear areas to see if there's excessive fuzzing, because you know you're going to get nailed with it. If you're going up a staircase, watch that. If you're going to a twist area hallway, watch for the fuzzing. Watch for it very carefully. And take pictures of the dumb thing before you get caught nailing, because once you get it wet, there isn't a judge in the world who won't blame you. Okay? Cleaning temperatures are great. WoolSafe says that you can go 160 degrees at the tip point where it hits it. My strong suggestion is a 47-year veteran coming in 3 more weeks. I have an anniversary coming up. That I don't want you to use hot temperatures on anything that's very deep in color. If it's all white and it's got red flowers in it, the red flowers dictate that. Because if you get extreme hot temperatures, you're going to take the color out and distort it. I also want you to know that when you have a lighter color, you can keep the heat up. It won't hurt it. But be careful. Check the backing and see if it's made of jute, because you're going to get the jute wet and you won't damage the yarn. You have a shrinkage issue. Remember that anything is easily absorbed is also easily stained. This is silk, and silk is a very fine yarn. It has to be dry cleaned. You have to put dry solvent on this. If you try to wash this, it'll never feel the same. You lose that papery feel that people buy. It's a permanent issue. This is when I had a maid service come into a silk rug and try to spot clean it. That was permanent. The silk is just beautiful. And be careful, there's a lot of prints in there. We open it up, you'll see a color on one side. Don't trust it, dry clean it. I have about a couple minutes left. Let me look at the synthetics for you. Does that look like fading to you? Look at the fading right here, where the arm cover on the nylon fabric was on there. Nylon's notorious for that. On fabrics and some of the carpet now, they're following solution dyeing, a lot of them, where the filament's colored all the way through and it won't fade. It's also bleach proof. Don't plan on that because it's a small portion. The carpet mills prefer to produce carpet on a white situation base so they can dye it to order. If they pre-color it, they're stuck with it. How many people know where the word nylon came from? It came from New York and London. That's because that's where DuPont developed it. The nylon is very absorbent yarn. It's the only yarn that you'll get out oil every time if you use a traffic lane booster, a traffic lane cleaner, and agitation, and take your time. You'll always get the oil out, and you'll almost always get the ink out too. And a lot of people don't understand that. But you'll have oil on all the oil issues with staining on all the natural and also on all the other synthetics. Couple last things here. I'm going to run to the last couple. This one here, a lot of people don't know that there's 2 types of nylon. This is a DuPont Monsanto product. This is a BASF Honeywell product. And this type of nylon is a 4% absorbency. This is 5%, and this is 20% more absorbent, and usually 20% harder to get the stains out. And they generally cost the same. I had a home, my first home, it had a lot of skylights in it and windows, and I didn't know the difference. I took my class first time a year after, and this thing faded out in 6 months. This one lasted 8 years before I had to replace it when I replaced it, because the dye holding it and it's fading, same cost. You guys are doing fabric or carpet, you need to be a good specifier so that you know how to, if someone calls you up and it's a customer, they're going to replace their flooring, you need to know about that. No matter where they buy, you should be able to tell them the pros and cons, because it should be in your whole thought system. A couple last things. I'm going to run over polyester real quick. Nylon is different than the other yarns. Nylon will easily absorb stains in food and coloring, requires protectant to resist the staining, generally will not stain with oils, and absorbs water. Polyester, triexta, olefin, and acrylics naturally resist food coloring. They protect and resist staining without it, doesn't need it. Permanently stain with oils and absorbs very little water. It's either totally opposite. I always call them the N and N's. You've got natural, you have nylon, and then you have the other synthetics. Nylon's that different. The N and N's. Okay, let's run over to polyester. It's probably the most time I've got. How popular is polyester? It about rules the world, doesn't it? It's in your car interiors. It's everywhere. It has below a 1% absorbency rate. Wool's at 30. So, and cotton's at 16, 17. How absorbent is polyester? Less than 1%. You're cleaning it on the other end of the sofa. It's dry already when you get to the other side. How much risk is that? It can't shrink. It's dyed with a dispersed dye or a solution dyed. It won't lose color. And it's everywhere. And most cleaners are afraid to clean it because it's standing this way and this way. It's not on the ground. Come on, guys. Let's get it and learn it. Why turn down the money? That's my polyester cow, made of polyester. But its disadvantage is tremendous. This absorbs oil. So when you get a polyester carpet or fabric, the only thing you're concerned about is there true petroleum-based oil in there. Shoe polish, motor oil, grease, tar, people's working on mechanics, grabbing the yarn. Those are the things you have to look out for. Or they had a nice juicy hamburger from their backyard and the kid tilts the plate and the grease goes on it. That's the stuff you have to worry about. But on polyester, all the water-based stuff will come out. And this includes microfiber, because all the microfiber today produced is polyester, all of it. Good? Okay, I'm going to sit around a little bit. They're going to start again in a little while, and just grab this stuff. If you guys want to take a quick look, I got some of the samples here of textbooks, and they got another speaker coming in. But that, I hope, helps a little bit, right? Take a look. You're welcome to take a look. Oh, one last thing. This is CleanFacts magazine. It's free. You can get the digital version sent to you. It's great. They're over here, and this is the main cleaning magazine left in our industry right now. It's very good. It's very, very good. Highly recommend it. Thanks, guys, for coming over.